Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Yale. This is their part number 60-2000-1241. The 078 that they have here is where the finish would go. Apparently that must be their internal code for just a 689 or a sprayed aluminum finish. So what is this? This is a wide head case cover for the 2100 and 2100F series exit devices. Let's take some basic dimensional properties, then we'll talk about it. Talk about why you might look at this. Overall height about 8 inch. Okay. Overall width near the top about 2 7/8. Overall projection from the face of the door about 2 5/8. Now, why would you be looking at this head case cover? Let's take a look at that right now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. The standard Yale 2100 or 2100F comes with a narrow head case cover. It's about 1.5 inches if I recall correctly, so it's quite narrow, except down in here it has about the same size as what I'm doing here, I suppose. Because it will come down and then flare out this way. And that narrow head case cover can work compatibly with all of the trims available with a 2100. So it will take a trim that will utilize a 161 prep, like maybe a 446 trim. You don't need the head case, the wide head case cover, to cover a 161 when you're installing at a standard back set. The reason that this project with this head case started is I have a client who's using a 2100, but they are modifying the back set requirement. They're going to be using it's a non-fire rated application. They're going to be using a 2100, but they are drawing that device closer to the edge of the door a very small amount, enough so that it will still work. It might be an aluminum frame application with a blade stop, and they're going to use a recessed strike. It was something like that, and it was all going to get moved over, and I forget the particulars, but there was a concern that it wouldn't cover part of the existing prep on the door or whatever, some unusual circumstance. So we investigated the idea that they might need a wide head case cover. And according to Yale, you don't need the wide head case, as I'd said earlier, if you're using any of those trims, because the device inherently is a wide style device. It just happens to ship with a narrow head cover, a little smaller petite footprint. According to Yale, you would use this head case cover if you were matching something legacy. If you were replacing a 2100 onto a door, if you were putting a 2100 onto a door that you were replacing something that had a wide head case, you might need a wide head case because it's a door that's been painted 10 times, and if you put on the narrow head case, well, you're going to have a mismatch in terms of the color of the door underneath that trim. So I think the wide head case cover is really going to be more cosmetic in nature as to why you might consider using it, and that would be it. A new installation, I think it would look a lot smarter to have the narrow head case cover on it, but in no way would it be required. And I personally wouldn't see any reason to use it outside of that. I've just done a job for a housing authority in the upper Midwest, and there were a couple of dozen doors, all Yale 2100. Saw no reason to use a wider head case at all. The narrower one is perfect. We're drilling the doors for the function holes exactly as needed per the template, so no need to have a wide head case. Don't really see a reason to incur the additional cost to the client. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a look at our supporting information. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Here is some images that we have down below. Part number, I wrote the part number on the box. It's here, part of it's cut off. The head case, the cover removed from the packaging. according to my magnet, it's made of steel. Even though, well, it's painted, but where the paint's not been covered, it's got to be steel. I was thinking for a moment it might be stainless, but it's a bit too magnetic for it to be stainless. Showing where the latch and the auxiliary dead latch would come out. Obviously where the touch bar chassis enters. The underside. Okay, now what we have is a cut sheet down below. And the cut sheet is a one-page document that just simply allows you to look at the different part numbers for the different wide style covers depending on the device. We're doing a 1241, so it's the 2100 or the 2100F. Different device types will have different head case cover part numbers. Okay. Then there is a link to the installation instructions for the 2100 and other devices. But this is nice because it draws attention to the difference between the narrow cover and the wide cover. Okay? And, well, I'll draw your attention in this next document. This is the product catalog. And let's scroll down, which is linked to down below. Scroll down to the 2100. And what I was really drawing attention to is the concept that the area here, if it had to sit over a 161 with a standard strike, you know, this dimension is the same on either device, obviously. It just is a little bit more graceful down in here. I suppose showing it to you here is what I'm drawing attention to. So depending on the trim that you're using, you may or may not, depending on the trim you're using, it will determine what holes you obviously drill for function holes. But either the narrow cover or the wide cover, it's going to come back the same way. Here's a template for the typical 446 style trim, and your standard narrow cover should work just perfectly. Now there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page, and it's seen here. And from here you can click on not only a review, not only all of the Yale products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Speaking of the full product catalog, for fun, we have some really old catalogs here. 1880 all the way to 1937, probably about 10, 12 years stuck in between there. So if you wanted to see what Yale was making over 100 years ago, you sure can. It's right here. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. In conclusion, I'm partial to Yale, and it's because they're a good quality company. They've been in business since the mid-19th century. In fact, it was Linus Yale Jr. who patented the pin tumbler cylinder, a platform, a technology of cylinder that we all use every day. 170 years later, 160 years later, we use the Linus Yale Jr. patent in everyday life. It's amazing, and it's the foundation on which so many other cylinder platforms have been derived from. That's a deep dive in its own, the history of locksmithing, that is certainly good reading to do. You can find a little bit of history in the Yale product catalog, in fact, about that. And if you were to then dive into locksmithing books in general, of which I could make some recommendations to you should you want to do further reading, you can. But that patent was pretty amazing. And actually, just to talk about it for a moment, Linus Yale Jr. was the son of Linus Yale. Well, he was not a slouch himself in the lock department, though he focused on bank and vault door type locks, because from what I understand is that's where the money was. People wanted to lock up their valuables. So what happened was, in the history of, let's say, the last 1,000 years, locks were quite rudimentary because people didn't have valuables to lock up. They didn't possess things. Well, when, the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th centuries came by, when people started to accumulate material, not only the rich and wealthy folks, but a class below that had stuff they needed to lock up, the evolution of locks began to develop. Locks became more sophisticated. And if you had lots of stuff, or if you were a bank and you had clients that wanted to lock up their stuff, you needed good quality locks. So Linus Yale Sr. focused on that, and Jr. went in a different direction and ultimately worked in a complete separate business with his focus on what today we would call builder's hardware. But there are lots of locksmithing books that can go over the history of locks. The John M. Mossman Lock Collection is located in Manhattan at the General Mechanics Society. So if you are ever in New York, in Manhattan specifically, and want to look at some outrageously brilliant 17th, 18th, 19th century technology, it is contained there. And I think admission is by donation. So an opportunity not to be passed. I have more information on that. If you wanted to request that of me, I can give you specific information about where exactly it is and more information in the collection. But you could search John M. Mossman Lock Collection, and there's actually a small book that's been written, maybe 100 pages, detailing every lock, its brief history, and some really cool locks that are in there. A.C. Hobbs would be another name that you'd want to look up as well. If you have any questions on this wide style head case for the Yale 2100 or 2100F series device or any other Yale product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.